Hi everyone, thanks for coming to the program. I'm Angie Berkey-Bonner, for those of you who I haven't met, which is numerous, but I do recognize some familiar faces. I'm with the Career Development Office. I'm one of the career consultants here, and I do focus a lot on the private sector, which would include solo practitioners. And we are lucky to have in town right now the ABA section for solo and small firm practitioners. They're meeting right now here in Denver along with a couple of other sections, and we were very fortunate to get a handful of speakers. And the first speaker right here to my left is Judge Pamela Brown, and she is with the, I've got it written down, can't rely on my mind. She's an associate judge with the District Court of Maryland, District 10 in Howard County, Maryland. Sitting next to her is Rinki Parwani. She's a shareholder at her own firm, Parwani Law, PA. And her firm practices in numerous areas, including bankruptcy, real estate, foreclosure, litigation, immigration, family law, estate planning, tax, criminal, and traffic violations. And to her left is Daniel Tan. He's the owner of the law offices of Daniel Jason in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And I didn't mention the Parwani firm is in Tampa, Florida. So we have people from around the country here. Daniel is, he practices in the areas of personal injury, bankruptcy, domestic relations, criminal defense, real estate, civil litigation, consumer collections, commercial litigation, wills and estates, and medical malpractice. And finally, we have our local practitioner, Christine Nita. She's the owner of Nita Law LLC here in Denver, and she practices in the areas of real estate, lending, finance, and corporate transactions, and possibly more. But so we just want to welcome all of you, and thank you all for coming as well. We all know that in these kind of interesting times in our legal market, we have more people than ever considering what it would be like to practice solo. And that ranges from people who've had some experience in law firms or government work, and people who are just graduating from law school and looking to start out in the legal community doing their own kinds of work. So I feel very fortunate that we have all of these folks here to talk to us today. And the first thing I'd just be interested in hearing from each of them on kind of their path so far in the career, in their legal career. So, Judge Roy, might be starting with you.
Good afternoon, and I want to add my welcome and thank you, because you have a ton of things that you could be doing, but I guess free pizza is a good thing. So, but we're delighted that you're here, and we're sort of like cheerleaders in a manner of speaking, but the ABA General Practice section is a home for not just solos and small firm individuals, but any practice law setting. So my path is pretty simple, I think. I started out and the corporation counsel, so I started in government work as counsel to Baltimore City, and I did labor and employment law there for about 8 years. Then I went to the Maryland Attorney General's office for about 15 years and had a variety of things. I did construction litigation, large tort claims, large federal actions, and then I went on the bench. I've been on the bench for 9.5 years, it'll be 10 years in May. And so that's my path. I really, law school was a bit of a challenge. I went to school, undergraduate school in Minnesota. It was called McAllister College in St. Paul, and went to the University of Baltimore Law School. I graduated in the 30s. And it was really a different time because of my law school class. Now I'm on the board, a faculty board, and when I go back, it's just amazing because the change, the transition for a person who graduated law school in the 70s, where when you looked around the room, by way of gender, it was about 20% of women in my class. So, and I was the only person of color, woman, to graduate when I graduated. So, market sea change. So that's my story, and I really am looking forward to speaking to you just about some tidbits, words of advice that I would give, and each one of the speakers can tell their story in their own way. So,
I'm glad to be here. It's kind of nostalgic because I remember 12 years ago I was sitting at the University of Minnesota Law School right where you are, and I knew at that time I wanted to open my own practice. It didn't happen until 4 years ago. I went from the University of Minnesota Law School straight out to Beverly Hills, California, and I practiced high-profile litigation, entertainment law litigation, and I did that for a few years. And then after that, I decided I didn't like litigation, so I went to Tahoe and did real estate and ski resort development and opening mom and pop stores, all mentoring with small law firms at the time. I didn't like that, so I went back and I was assistant general counsel for Wells Fargo for a while. I decided, well, maybe I want to go in-house. Didn't like that, so I went to be a partner in a Dallas law firm. Didn't like that, and then finally I went back to where I really wanted to be, which is where you are today. I opened my own practice, and it won Small Business of the Year within 3 years. So I'm hoping I can share with you some of the strategies to get there besides the long path I took, and maybe, maybe it's the right thing for you today, and I'm glad that you're here and taking that step.
Good afternoon. I'm glad you're all here and listening attentively. My road's a little bit different. I came from Philadelphia. I went to a school called LaSalle University for undergrad, was an accounting and management major, and initially I was going to go to law school to be a corporate attorney, and then sort of somewhere in the path said, no, I want to be a criminal attorney. Ended up going to Drake University in Des Moines, Iowa, where it's very, very cold, similar to Colorado, and graduated, came back to Philadelphia, and didn't pursue the career as a criminal attorney because figured out that to be a criminal attorney you had to either work for the district attorney's office or the public defender's office initially, both in Philadelphia very political positions, and at that point didn't have the political connections to get in, and those positions didn't pay very well. So I ended up working for a union-side labor law firm in their general practice department, which was very good because I knew I wanted to be a litigator. And at that firm, it was a firm of about 15 attorneys. From day one, I was in court. And I'll share a story with you that it's funny now, it wasn't funny then. First day on the job, I was supposed to sit second chair with my boss on a personal injury case. We were defending an individual who had rear-ended someone, had no insurance, could not read or write. And I show up and he says, oh, I can't do the trial, you handle it. It's day one. So I get the file, go into court, never met the client. The judge, I found out later, was crazy. Opposing counsel had narcolepsy, so he's falling asleep. And we go into the case, and we did what all good attorneys do. We settled. And we worked out a settlement. I think our client was going to pay $100 a week for 5 years. And came back to the office. Boss said, excellent job. Couldn't have done better myself. Great way to start your career off. But it was. I stayed there for 3.5 years until I had a case with the senior partner of another firm, and I beat up on him really bad. Got a call from him. He said, like the way you handled yourself, would you consider talking about coming in and running my domestic relations practice, and we want to build a commercial litigation practice? I said, sure, I'll talk to you. Met with him, met with his partners, offered me a job I could not refuse because it gave me an opportunity to develop a new area of practice and run it without any interference. Stayed there for about 10 years, running their commercial practice, developing a collection practice, and developing a bankruptcy practice. Because at my first firm, as the new guy in the firm, I got to do all the stuff nobody else wanted to do, which was bankruptcy, domestic, and criminal. So I got all those skills that nobody else wanted to do, which later became a benefit. I stayed with the second firm for about 10 years until the partner who hired me passed away. His remaining partners had their issues. And I said, well, I'm making tons and tons of money for these guys. I can make tons and tons of money for myself. At that point, in 2002, I started my own firm. Have not looked back. Have enjoyed every moment of it. So just how you get there.
Well, I graduated from law school in 9th grade. I was a returning student. I was married, had children, and a job, and was going to law school. And at that time, there was a downturn in the economy too, also in '89 and '90. And it was really challenging to get positions coming out of law school at that time. And I remember one of my professors, I must have been whining at the time, and said to me, oh, when I graduated in '74, you couldn't get a job anyplace. These things are always cyclical, and don't worry, you're going to be fine. And so that's what the first thing I want to say to you all is, everything is cyclical, and you can overcome any challenge that's out there. You just have to really want it bad enough. So I graduated from law school in '93, and out of law school, I clerked for a federal judge in the Northern District of New York for a couple of years. I went, in case you can't tell from my accent, I went to law school. I went to St. John's Law School in New York City, and Hunter College is my undergraduate, also in New York City. And after clerking for a federal judge, I was hired by a very large law firm in New York City, and I worked there for a few years. And to say I didn't like it is to put it mildly, but I didn't like it. And for personal reasons, I wound up moving out here to Colorado, and I worked for a very large law firm here too for 12 years, and then 2.5 years ago with the real estate market, because I'm a real estate attorney, I do lending, business, anything to do, I kind of joke, anything to do with dirt. I'm a dirt attorney. And then around 2 years ago, with the economy and real estate going bust and everything, I decided to go out on my own. And I must say, I am the happiest I have ever been practicing law on my own. It's a real treat. Having always worked and done all the legal work and not really having to deal with the business side of having your own practice, that's been the bigger challenge for me. And that's something that is, if you choose to go solo, you have to make sure that you have this entrepreneurial spirit, because it's business any way you look at it. And the legal work will come once you decide that this is the business you want to be in.
Thanks, each of you, and I think that was a really nice segue, Tina, because I think that one thing that's really important to know, and you know, you might this might be an obvious question to ask, but I do think that everybody would benefit from knowing what each of you in your own personal experience and whatever your practice areas are, and however you're working within the legal profession, what some of your greatest challenges and your greatest rewards are, both, as you have gone through these paths that you've gone through.
I'm going to start. When I was working for corporation counsel at the time, which was the early days, you could have a private practice. So I had a private practice at that time. And so, you know, one of the challenges you have is right now, I mean, there's so many opportunities. You could do a virtual office. There are all kinds of things that you can do without having to have actual office space. There's office sharing arrangements. There's where you have just almost like a cubicle, but you have a general conference room that everybody uses. And I just called like a couple of weeks ago, and one of the challenges is we've gotten so technologically, I think, savvy that, you know, some of the phone things to me don't work, and you got to work through that. You know, sometimes I think it's a benefit to have a good staff and somebody to physically answer your calls, whether it's an answering service that can forward it on to you or something. It's something that doesn't sound like it's remote. But there are all sorts of ways that you can minimize the cost, because you have substantial costs, as you know. You need equipment, whether that's your Xerox machines, whether it's the computer outlay, it's your furniture you're going to lease or rent, or you know, what are you going to do with that? Are you going to buy it outright? So there's all those challenges, and I know that GP, we have a variety of books on starting a law practice, and it sort of summarizes for you what you sort of finite cost that you're going to have. And I think it's really important that you know, go to the resources. Go, you know, you can look in the phone book. You have these kind of panels that your school's offering to you. You've met one practitioner here in the local area, or sort of field calls if you'd ask. But ask people what it's like to be a solo or small firm practitioner, and what words that they would have as you start. It's so important that you remember your rules of conduct. You know, when, you know, it used to be that usually it was a lawyer who had some kind of difficulty by way of substance abuse, mental health problem, that was going to attorney discipline. Now that's been a whole sea change of shift, that many of the disciplinary cases are for young lawyers, which is, you know, really pretty, from my vantage point, pretty amazing, you know, that people who just got out of law school are finding themselves before bar counsel. And it's because there isn't a dearth of information about the kinds of things that we all know about our client trust fund and not taking money and how we deal with that, but just some other nuances. So it's just really important to try to hook up with somebody, not hook up in that way, but hook up, what is it called? Contact other people in the area. So.
Well, as far as challenges, I think, I'm sure there are people who have a lot more challenges than I did when I started my firm 4 years ago. I started in a down economy. I was pregnant and I had a 1-year-old. All I had to my name was my laptop and my cell phone and a kitchen table and one printer. And I was able to start the firm with that. And you know why I was able to do that? I think it's because I took it as you pointed out, as a business. And I sat down and I said, okay, but I didn't take a big SBA loan, or I didn't, go to somebody and say, tell me how to do this. I didn't call up, a mentor lawyer. We have resources. You have so many resources. Today, you could go down to the Westin Hotel and be a part of one of the biggest and best resources in the country to start a law practice, the solo and small firm division. So you can go down to there, come to the seminars, everything, the CLEs, talk to lawyers who do this on a day-to-day basis. I think if you're serious about it, that's what you're going to do. If you're not serious, you're not going to do those things. You're not going to sit on the computer and get the free resources from the Colorado bar. You're not going to figure out how to put a budget together. You're just going to go in and I'm going to take cases and I'm going to be a lawyer. And I can't tell you how many law students I see try to do that. I mean, I hire a law clerk and they want me to tell them everything. Nobody's there to help you, only you. So you need to get up, get your resources. You're quite capable of using your computer. Figure everything out. You can look up the local rules of the courthouse. You can look up the ethic rules. You can do it better probably than I can. You're probably more computer savvy than most of the lawyers you're practicing against. Don't doubt yourself, but do your homework and do it well and do it better than anybody, because that's the way you're going to get a good reputation. That's the way you're going to be able to keep the few clients that you have and take care of them. And I think that's the biggest challenge I see for young lawyers is they don't use their common sense to get the information they need to do their job and set up their business. It's all out there. It's all free. You don't have to pay for it. You don't need thousands of dollars. You just need to take your time and invest it. And that's just like what, Facebook did. He didn't have thousands of dollars when he started. He just started. And that's what you need to do, and you can do it.
I guess one of the oldest sayings that are out there is what you don't do is the thing that can hurt you. And when you're going to set up your office, I've done it twice. I've started my firm and then I've moved my firm. The first time I did it with the situation where I rented space from someone else. And that's good in two respects, because one, it put me in an environment where I had other attorneys that had experience, because when you're out there as a solo, sometimes you don't know everything, and it's good to have other people around that you can bounce things off of. So that's a good thing, where you also have other people as a feeder, because one of the things I did when I started the first office was I made sure that the suite that I joined had attorneys who did not do what I did, so that if they had a client who came in with a accident case, they referred that to me. In return, I didn't do workers' compensation. That attorney in that office did workers' compensation, so we could refer work back and forth, generating income. So that's something you want to look at as well. We also had other attorneys in the office where we did some things that were similar, and we could talk about it. So it gave you a resource of someone who was knowledgeable. We had one attorney who was in the first law school graduating class of Villanova University, only did criminal law. So I do some criminal law. He was a great resource. If I had a difficult criminal case, I was right in his office. How would you handle this? Great resource. My second office that I opened up, I went away from that because I was at a point where I had more resources and I designed my own office. Well, in doing that, then that opened up the next set of issues you have to look at is if you're going to have your own office, there's some little things that you have to look at, just simple things like when can you move into the office physically? You say, well, what do you mean? Well, in a big city and in small cities, some of the buildings may be union buildings. So that may mean that your movers have to be union movers. That may mean it may cost you more. You can't get, 16 friends in a U-Haul and move your equipment in. Won't happen. The other thing is, some buildings will say you cannot move in during office hours. They don't want the disruption of the other tenants. So that means you may have to move in 5:30, Monday through Friday, or on a Saturday or Sunday. So you've got to be aware of that. Then as we talked about equipment, what do you really need? Do you need a copier, a printer, fax machine, a scanner? And do you negotiate those? Do you buy it or do you lease it? Well, when I negotiated my copier, fax, scanner, I got lucky because it was in the middle of a blizzard. And I got a deal where, if for those of you who don't know, on those equipment pieces, you lease them, but you also pay a % charge per copy normally. Well, I was able to negotiate 40,000 free copies on my copy machine because it was in the middle of a blizzard and they weren't selling anything. Well, I negotiated that in 2002, and on that particular copier, we still have not used all 40,000. So we're still free. And it's funny because the servicing company every year sends me a bill, and I said, go look at the contract. And they said, well, how did you do that? I negotiated. So you have to look at those things. Telephones. Everybody wants to use a cell phone. Well, we had an earthquake in the East Coast a couple weeks ago. All cell phones went out. You do need a hard line if you're running a law office. Then you have to figure out how many do you need. Then, if you're like me, you may want a vanity line, just because I have a unique name, Dan Tan. I had a client one day, we were doing sentencing, and he said, you ought to have a number 800 Dan Tan. I said, gee, that makes sense. I went back to the office, called the phone company. Is it available? Sure enough. So I have a vanity line, 877-DANTANN. So the clients don't have to necessarily remember my number. They can remember my name. It's a business strategy. So something you have to think about. Then, as the judge said, do you want a live person or do you want an automation or a combination of both? I have a combination. I have a system called OneBox that gives me the availability to do both. I can have a live person, or you can call and it will say that the assistant will be with you shortly, or it will say hold and track me. As I'm in Denver, I can set that phone to ring my cell phone, and I can pick it up, and my clients don't know I'm in Denver, not in the office. So technology make it work for you. Internet, same thing. How many computers do you need? Do you need laptops? Do you need desktops? And do you lease? Do you buy? And you have to have an IT guy. As smart as we all think we are, we don't know everything there is about computers. An IT guy is valuable. I have an IT guy, something goes down, I pick up the phone, he's there in 10 minutes, fixes the problem. Because if your system goes down, you have all of your stuff on your computer, and you need a time and billing program. You say, why do I need a time and billing program? Well, in some of your cases, you get paid by the hour, which means you don't want to be sitting there writing down on paper. You want to be able to put it in your computer, have your computer generate a bill. You also want to be able to cut checks. You also want to be able to put in money and keep track of your money. And you also want to keep track of your time. There are great software programs out there. There's one I'll give you called PC Law, and you can go online and look it up, PCLaw.com, and do the little practical. It'll show you how to run your whole law office, top to bottom, billing, checks, your whole time-keeping system from one program, and the program will run you about $395. So it's very cost-effective. But those are the little things that you need to know to run an office. That if you don't have in place, it'll kill you because you won't keep track of where you're going. You'll have a pile of files in the corner. You'll lose money, and you'll say, gee, I'm doing a lot of work, and I don't know what I'm doing. The other thing, and then I'll move on to the next person, is what are you going to charge for consultations? When I first opened up, I was so happy that I did 3 consultations. I was busy as heck. I was making no money because everybody wants to come in and tell you a story. Well, a little trick, start charging $100 for a consultation. What that did was those people who just wanted to tell me a story stopped coming in. Those people who were serious about getting help with their legal problems, they would come in and pay the $100 and then retain it, so that I wasn't wasting a whole day listening to just stories and not getting paid.
Stan, can I ask, did you let them, that would serve as the beginning of their fee that you were going to charge, that $100? Did that equate to their like down payment or whatever you want to call it, their retainer?
Initially, I did.
Okay.
Now I do not.
Okay. Because that's another technique to use as well.
Well, being that I'm from Denver, and I practice here, I wanted to give you a couple of ideas of resources for you right here. The Colorado Bar Association is absolutely fabulous. Once you're a member, and I think you automatically become a member if you choose to practice in this state. For the first year, I think I heard from someone that it was for free the first year.
For the first year, I think.
Yeah, well, there's a case maker, so the library and research. There's a free program that you can go on to do research for your cases, for all the Colorado statutes, for anything you potentially, they have a form base there if you wanted to do foreclosures or you needed a deed or things like that. And it's all within your Colorado Bar Association. The Colorado Bar Association also has an has a how to start your own practice for solos. And even if they're not giving it right now, you can get the material from them. And if you choose to practice in Colorado, it gives you all the statutory requirements that you would have to comply with. I took that course, and I took the course in New York City because I'm licensed in New York, New Jersey, and Colorado. And in New York City, they also have a course, how to start your own practice. So I'm certain in Colorado and that each state must have something to help people starting their own practice getting through. The ABA was an absolutely amazing source for me. The ABA has a listserv called Solo Says, SOLOSEZ. And you have to sign on, and basically I want to say there's maybe 10,000 solo attorneys on it. One of the hardest things for me to adjust going from a big firm to a solo practice is you don't have anyone to bounce ideas off. You have to call your friends up and say, hey, what do you think about this? But it's not like your colleague down the hall. So ABA Solo Says, when you sign on, you can put a problem out there and say, hey, listen, a client walked in and told me that the bank is putting signs up on their house and they have 5 children and they don't know what to do, and could you give me some advice? And there are people out there that will send you information and tell you where to go, or if you can handle it or you can't handle it. Because that's another thing. When you're just starting out, you have to be certain you can handle the case that's coming in so that you don't wind up in trouble before a judge for ethical considerations. So an ABA Solo Says also helped me with getting the right program for my practice. So I don't litigate. So I use different software than Dan may. I use Tabs 3, and for me, the key for my practice is I do documentation, I do contracts, I do business agreements, and I have to have access to 1,000 agreements because each specific transaction, or as we call it, a deal, is deal specific. So the terms, you can pull them out from all your experience and put them all together. So I also got a World Docs program, and I learned that from ABA Solo Says. You say, listen, this is my practice. I need a really good document control software. And I found it. It was fabulous. And I found someone who set me up. I mean, my practice, if I have my laptop, I can practice from anywhere in the world. And I'm lucky enough to have clients that realize I can travel and do everything. I just have to have a telephone and my laptop, and business can go on from wherever I am. So those are the things that I think will help you. The Solo says listserv, your bar associations, the ABA, and rather than someone like me give you checklists that applied specifically to me, I think when you go through the list yourself, you'll figure out what your budget is, what your business plan, how much you're willing to risk on this business, and all the different ideas. There's two other authors. I think his first name is Jay. I know his last name is Thunberg. It's How to Start Your Own Law Practice. It's been around in print for, I think, 30, 40 years already, and he updates it. It's
The Bible.
It is, and you can go there and get a checklist. It's absolutely fabulous. Some of the things are I found a little outdated for my practice, like he's into getting stationery and equipment and, and things like that. And with technology today, I got a macro put into my computer that does my stationery. So I didn't need to go out and spend significant amounts of money on stationery. Another book that's is Carolyn Elephant, and she's very active with the ABA also, and she has a book out that gives you a lot of very good guidelines. Other than that, you just take it one day at a time, and as I was talking to our panel earlier, everything you do, once you get a client in, everything you do, you should treat as a very important exam that you're having in law school. And make sure that you ace it. Because if you get a client in and you're only charging them $100, or you're saying, I'll do this for you pro bono, just for me to get the experience or whatever. If you solve that client's problem, 10 years down, you don't know where they're going to be, who they're going to refer. And as you start to treat your clients and take care of your clients, they'll keep coming back to you if you keep solving their problems. And that's usually when people need attorneys, when they have problems. And I think of myself more as a problem solver for people, to try and make everything work for them. And so just build relationships, and that's really where you get the clients.
Can I just share something about newsletters? It's a marketing tool, but I really highly recommend it. As Tina said, the bottom line is people come to lawyers when they're in crises, essentially, typically. I mean, they could come on a happy occasion, but oftentimes it's not. So part of the key is that if you have a monthly newsletter, you could either do it by and I would think that that would be the most appropriate. And honestly, there are a number of resources that you can go that will give you the content. One article may be on a real estate closing. One article may be on defending yourself if you are sued as relative to an accident case. There could be a whole host of things. There are already sites that give you the content. And the ABA is one of those places that can give you content for a newsletter. You plop your picture up there and call it whatever you'd like to call it, and you send that out on a regular basis. If you didn't do it monthly, maybe it's quarterly. Maybe if you have a success case or you have a client testimonial that you can include in there. But again, and then you've got to take yourself to places that you maybe haven't taken yourself before. One example I know that Daniel said that it was hard to get into the office, either the state's attorney's office or the public defender's office, and maybe that's in some jurisdictions. But the bottom line is the volunteer aspect, and that's good and bad. But what you want to be able to do is place yourself in a position to meet people, to get referrals from other attorneys. Other judges may refer cases. And sometimes if you volunteer, you're not getting paid for it, but number one, hopefully you're getting experience through your whatever pro bono project it is. And as Tina said, if you take a case and you're not charging a whole lot, but you do a great job, that may be a person that you're just going volunteering because your kid goes to this elementary school. You say that, oh, I'm going to work with the PTA. They don't know what they're doing, but you're a lawyer, so you know how to run a meeting. You know how to crystallize issues, help debate flow so that you get to the end of where you need to get to. That may parlay into somebody's dad is opening a car dealership and needs agreements. I mean, you just never know. So your volunteer activities, what I'm saying to you is that it really is important that you continue. We have an obligation. You already know the rules say it's 50 hours or give money. My suggestion, do the 50 hours in a variety of ways. You can do that, you can give back to the community, but give back to yourself, whether that's with the soccer league, whether it's with your church or synagogue, wherever. Doing what you do best, which is helping people resolve issues and help people crystallize their thought process, looking at both sides of an issue. I want to say, as a judge, oftentimes, I have 3 suggestions I want to leave with you before I finish whatever, because I don't have a lot more to give as to the content here. Number 1, as a new practitioner, for me, a new practitioner is anybody who's been practicing less than 3 years. I'm in my mid-50s. If I could be 55, and I would still consider myself a young lawyer if I had been practicing less than 3 years. You do need to make yourself available. You need to advise the judge. You don't have to be a brown noser. There is a way to do it. And you need to advise the staff, whether it's the bailiff, whether it's a courtroom clerk. Every person you meet in that environment, you need to be pleasant. You may do administrative work. You may be at the Office of Administrative Hearings, and they have secretaries and other administrative staff. But whoever you deal with, you need to be as polite, and I know it goes without saying, but I can't tell you how many times my law clerk will come back and tell me how crappy or snotty somebody was on the phone to them, and they, of course, they're going to tell me, and I'm supposed to be neutral, but of course I do think about that, and if something can go either way, what do you think your predisposition is? You're looking at the law, but the law is a flexible instrument as well. So all I'm saying is everything that goes around comes around. Your reputation, and the second thing, your reputation typically in the first 5 years of your practice is a reputation you will have for a lifetime. I have people that I graduated from law school with, and people still remember whatever they did. They wouldn't grant a continuance. If it doesn't hurt you or your client, grant it. You could be in the jackpot. You have a lot to do. And somebody asks you for continuance. You don't have to do the scorched earth technique. That's the second thing I wanted to leave. And the third thing is that, as I said, you need to use an opportunity to be involved in the community, but most importantly as well with your bar association. The ABA offers free membership, as you know, for law students and then as young lawyers. There are a variety of things, but the resources, they are unparalleled. For whatever the price break is, you're going to get more bang from your buck through your local association, the ABA, than I think in any other circumstance. Just plain resources. Tina just talked about, our solo says, I'm a cheerleader. I've been active in GP for 30 years. I helped start their diversity plan, about 15 years ago, and I just really like it, and I think it's very effective. And I just encourage you to just, you would think that I can't market myself if I'm doing good, and you can do good and market yourself at the same time. And you need to market yourself to the judiciary. There are panel cases that go out, and we don't know who to give them to if we don't know who the people are. And oftentimes that case will lend itself, but number 1, you're in a courtroom. There are other people seeing you, other jurors, other potential clients, and other lawyers for referrals. They'll say, gosh, I was there, she seemed very young, but she was right on point. And you do need to be prepared. As a solo, you are going to be busy. There'll be times when they're downtime. So every single case, as you said, you have to treat it like it's the last case I'm going to get. You do your research. Sometimes more seasoned lawyers try to scoop by the seat of their pants, and you will blow them out of the water because you come prepared. You don't stand up to argue to me and say, Your Honor, I'm citing XYZ, and you're telling me what the case holds. You don't even have a copy for me. Just simple things like that. You impress me. You come, I have a copy for the court. I have a copy for opposing counsel. I can't tell you how many times people come, they're going to argue, and it's either a novel point of law or it's something, I'm on the bench, I do have my laptop there, but for me to get into LexisNexis, to get back to where my notes are, I'm probably not going to do that. So if I have the case that I can quickly summarize, it's a great benefit. If you're going to cite something, make sure it's accurate. Don't cite me something that is inopposite or it's tangentially there. I mean, if you have a strong argument, Sturm, you be an effective advocate. And finally, you've got to be, even if the other side is just a bulldog, you don't have to be a bulldog. And I'm telling you that, you said the judge crazy. There are jurors that are crazy. There are doctors that are crazy. There are priests that are crazy. We are not a profession that escapes the craziness. Okay. Your best friend is what? The record. So if a judge is being condescending or somehow you think that they're just not, you could ask the judge if I keep sustaining objection or overruling it, you could articulate what you think the basis for me to do X, Y, and Z, and you may, in a polite way, Your Honor, can I ask what the basis of the decision is, or the basis of the denial? Does it put me on the spot? Am I going to get a little like, I can't believe he's asking me to tell me the basis? But it puts the judge in check that I've got to have a basis. Do you see what I mean? And you're protecting yourself, you're protecting your record, and it's a way that you do it. And, the kids keep it simple, stupid, and kindness, it goes a long way with your, somebody can be really mean, and you will be persuasive to a jury, but that you can still address the person in a very polite way before getting them. So other people need to speak.
Well, I know that some students probably have a 1250 class, and so I have a question that I can ask the panel, but I do want to ask those of you that can stay for a few more minutes, if you have questions, feel free to address the panel. Yeah, go ahead.
You guys talked about cost. We're told that a big cost problem for a lot of people starting their own practices is research. Westlaw or LexisNexis, it's really expensive. Like, do you decide it's worth paying out the bucks, or do you have some other means of research?
Well, I was listening to you talk, and I was like, gosh, I did everything opposite you did. I did not have a landline. I did not have, I did not have a fancy copier. I did not have anything. I did not get LexisNexis. I went down to the library. It's free. Until you have a caseload to support it, what are you doing? Why are you spending money you don't need? I mean, even today, I don't spend a dime unless I need it. So if I have my first traffic case, I don't go out and buy the traffic books. I go down to the library, I get what I need, I prepare the case. You know what, if I start getting 50 traffic cases, then maybe I buy that book, or maybe I sign on the Lexis. But until I have the cash flow to support it, you're out of your mind, in my opinion.
Another thing that you can do in Philadelphia, we have a law library in the city. For $75, you get access to Lexis 20 minutes a day. And you can go into the library and use their system. So I really don't have Lexis in the office other than that, because like you said, it's really not cost effective unless you're using it a lot. And you'll find if you're litigating, you're not going to use it more than that 20 minutes a day unless you're a bad researcher. And if you need a real big project, you go down to the library. And if you're here, you've got this resource.
Yeah.
And the only reason I used, the copy machine and all those things, I had been in practice at that point, 10, 15 years, and I had a practice to support it.
Yeah, I don't have a landline. I don't have LexisNexis. If I need, I have access to all the statutes through the Bar Association, Colorado Bar and New York State Bar and New Jersey State Bar. They give you access to their statutes, which if you're doing transactional work, real estate, lending, consumer advocacy, things like that, you need to review their statutes. But they're for free. You can just look them up online. So I don't incur any additional expense like that. And actually, when I first came here, I was really happy because I've been going to New York, and when I'm there, I buy law books if I need them. And they just told me I could use the used law bookstore. So I've managed to survive here without it. You don't need that. My biggest expense was my laptop, my programs, my scanner. I don't have a fax. I only have my cell phone. It's my business line. I went to Postmon. I went to GoDaddy to get my website, my domain for $100. I mean, basically, I had a $5,000 budget to start my whole practice. And I was able to take care of everything and still have money there, so I wouldn't be anxious. But I think you could do it. Oh, and my business cards.
Don't forget.
Vista Print. I got my business cards, hat, and mouse. I did pay for shipping for the business cards, and I think I paid something extra, like $2.99, so that they wouldn't put Vista Print on the back of them. But I think Vista Print had an advertisement on television, and they used this design too. So you can get cards for $10 with hats and mouses that say your law firm. I mean, you can basically be up and running. There was one other thing though. When you're just starting out and you don't have practical skills, everyday practical skills of lawyering. I had two friends that were in my study group, And one of them was working for one law firm with 2 or 3 attorneys 2 days a week, and another law firm, a solo guy who was trust and estates. Here it is like 10, 15 years later, they're so happy and so successful. And then my other friend in my study group, she went to work for $25,000 for the year, working for a litigator that she had to commute one way over an hour to get to. And within 6 months, she left him, and she went to work in an office where she had to work 3 days a week for the attorney in the office in return for her getting space. So she didn't have to lay out any money at all. She did work for an attorney for 3 days, and the other 2 days she handled her clients. Once she got into overload and there started to be a little tension building, she had enough money to go out and get her own space. 10, 15 years later, here I am sweating away in these big firms, and they're having a really great quality of life. So just keep that in mind. It may be a little scary at times. Overcome your fear and go for it.
One other free or close to free legal research resource is Lois Law, and I don't feel like we learned about that very often in law school, but I worked at a big firm for 10 years, and we still use Lois Law over Lexis and Westlaw, so it's a really great resource.
I use Fastcase in my office. I think it's like $180 a year, but again, I waited till I had a caseload that would support it. You know, I didn't go out and, you know, my investment was I already had a laptop, I already had a cell phone, and I spent $10 on business cards, and I went going. And I think the biggest thing, the biggest question people have is how do I get my first client? I think some of the ideas here are important. There are so many other ways, and if you come to the Weston, you'll learn about them. Legal insurance plans are one big way that you can get clients very quickly. I also sign up for panels on the court. And when I started my practice, I had just moved to the city. I knew nobody. Not a soul. I was not in any activities. I was not at the bar. I didn't have anything. So I had to figure out how to get a client and get them fast. Biggest way, I would say, my first case, if you're going to fall off your chair, you know how much I got paid? $10 a file. That is my biggest client today. I can't even stop getting cases from them. I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore for $10 a file. But you know, they're giving me so much work that now I can pass it off to somebody else in the office who I can pay $10 an hour for or whatever, and do it. So don't, you know, think about your business model. Think about how you're going to structure it. Don't discount it just because it's not $200 an hour. If you're getting work from a lawyer at $10 an hour, you better well take it because it's better than nothing. And you're learning something. And you know, when you come out of that, after you've learned it, you can do it for $10 an hour because you're so efficient at it. First time is going to stink. But after you figure out how to do it and do it efficiently and understand it and been to court and argued it, and you're going to be fine. But you got to take the risk. You got to understand the business model. You got to understand that not every lawyer is going to make $600 an hour. And you know what? You will make more at $10 a file than I did as a partner at a Dallas law firm, and I made a lot of money. You know, I
think
hour.
I'm making more per hour now than I did when I was working at a law firm. I mean, you're billing 2,400 hours. You have no life. And if you break it out into how much, I think when I first started, I figured I was making less than $20 an hour, maybe close to 30 before I left. This was in New York City, and we're all thinking, oh, New York City law firms, you're making so much money. Not where you start.
I think, yeah, there's a question over here, I think.
Oh, I just, obviously you know that we're coming out of school this year with a less than good economy, and it just doesn't look like it's getting that much better any quickly. And so it seems like, at least here in Denver, what I've gathered is there's these mid-sized firms, 10, 15, and then you have like small little firms, 2, 3 people, and they're not hiring. So my question is, it seems like you guys all had a pretty substantial career in lawyering before you went out on your own, and you had some professional experience of actually being a lawyer. So my question is, how do you see that? Do you see people doing that straight out of law school? Do you have, I don't know, anything to speak to that? Is that, I mean, it seems like kind of a ridiculous idea to do. Because you're like,
but it's been there forever. I mean,
yeah,
when you look at the
ability.
percentages, even, I know you're going to, in the percentages, the people that are in large law firms, it is like 10% of the whole legal profession. So where is everybody else? Everybody has the, you know, the gravy train up here thinking that that's the be-all, end-all. Government practice is takes up the middle-sized chunk, then the rest are in solo and small firms. So the model has not ever, in my mind, it really hasn't shifted. Maybe the focus, because that was always the mantra, is that everybody's, wants to do law review and go to a law firm, a large law firm, and make huge amounts of money. That was always there. But in reality, what was really happening, that was a very limited amount of the legal population. So I think people have always been going into solo and small firm practice. What we're seeing now, however, is that you usually, I think before, there were lawyers that would be willing to take you under the shingle, you weren't going to get much, and those lawyers are maybe not doing as well, so they're not willing to take that. So what do you know, in my mind, to get the experience, it is, you have to volunteer. I recognize you all have a ton of student loans from college, from law school, unless you're independently wealthy. So you've got to have a plan of how you're going to do that, but getting your name out in the community, doing some volunteer work, I think will help you. And also, you've got to, use the resources of the bar. There's usually a volunteer panel or a reduced fee panel. Volunteer to do that. Go to all the training that any pro bono project offers. If they offer training on real estate or dealing with foreclosure, just go to it. Sometimes they say you have to go to it and take 1 day. Do it. You'll have that training, that background. If it's a domestic violence, go ahead, get the experience, do it. My suggestion is if there are pro bono programs out there that are offering you training, you take all the training, you take one case, usually it's only a requirement of 1 piece. You've gotten the education, nobody can take that away, and you've gotten the experience. It's not easy, and sometimes you may have to supplement that. There are those firms that are, you're hired by the hour, just look at that. Some people just really need people to do research for them. Some people need work with appellate briefs or brief writing or memorandum writing. So there are a variety of things that you can do to supplement. But I don't think, honestly, I don't think it's really been a huge change. It's just that it's more, everybody's having a more difficult time getting a job no matter what kind of graduate program you're in.
I think the other thing you can avail yourself on is I know this university has the clinical program, the externship. And those are good because I know I took a clinical program, and one of the questions when I interviewed for my job was, did you do a clinical program, and explain what you did. And it gave me an edge because I had actually tried for cases when I came out of law school. And that's beneficial. The other thing is, if you're thinking about going out on your own, at least in Philadelphia, our bar association has a your referral system where you can sign up and they will refer cases to you so that you're on a panel and you sign up, you pay, I think it's a fee of $250, check off the things that you're comfortable doing, and they refer cases to you for a percentage. And that's how you get feeders. The other thing, as Judge Brown said, with volunteering, one of the things I've done very effectively is in Pennsylvania, we have, with insurance, we have this thing called limited tort and full tort. And I go out to churches, and I will do a free insurance review and have people come in with their insurance policies and review them and tell them if you've got limited tort, you need to change it. Gets my card in their hand. If they're in an auto accident, who do you think they're going to call? They're going to call me because they've got my card. Oh, you're the lawyer who reviewed my insurance policy. Those types of things, which take very little time, get you in their face, and if they have any other legal problems, they're going to call me because very few attorneys will do that one-on-one marketing. The other thing that you can do as a solo that nobody else wants to do is a house call. I don't know how many times I get a call, somebody has a sick relative and needs a power of attorney or a will. I'll go to their house and get the will done in the power of attorney. The big and middle firms will not do that. That will set you above and beyond, because what happens when you go to the house? Grandmom's there, uncle's there, cousin's there. You're going to do 5 or 6 people, you're going to get your card. So just be aware sometimes you got to think outside the box.
I would answer that in a particular way, because I just started hiring law clerks in the last 4 years, and I have to tell you, I don't see a law, I'm probably not going to do it again, and I'll tell you why, because you've got to come to that, as a small firm, you've got to come to that small firm Like you're prepared, like everybody said, like there's no tomorrow. When they give me a resume and they say, what do you do here? You didn't even look at my website, okay? I'm not gonna hire you. I don't have time to sit there and teach you what my firm does. You need to be telling me. On the other hand, you also have to have a balance, right? You're new, so you don't know everything there is to know about practicing law. But then when I don't see that in the interview, that you're willing to pick up the ball and go learn it, I don't want to hire you either. If I have to sit there and explain to you where the research books are, or where the law library is, and you can't get on Yahoo and go get a map and you have to waste my time, you're not valuable to me. So whether you're opening your own practice or whether you're trying to get into a small or solo firm, you've got to market yourself. You've got to be a marketer. You've got to make sure you're giving that person what they want, or otherwise why are they going to have you there? And that's important, especially if you're opening your solo. I would love it. I would love it if you came and take $10 an hour and a commission on what you can generate. You know? But nobody wants to do that. They want they want $50,000 in salary, and they want their benefits, and they want their job. Well, earn it. Earn it. I have to earn it. You earn it. Whether you're opening your own firm or working for a small firm. I don't think there's any, lawyer in town that if you went to and said, I'll do this case, I'll do it for free, and if you do a bang-up job, you don't think you're going to get another one? I'd put you on my next case. If you're doing it for $10 an hour even, I would give you 10 cases. And that's how you build. And then you can start charging, well, I don't have time for that, I'm going to have to start charging you $15 an hour. Or whatever the case is going to be. But you're going to have a pipeline. You need to start your pipeline. You need to start it well. You need to do a bang-up job so they can't live without you. And then you're set.
And then to go back to what I said earlier, it's all about relationships, not just with clients, but, and I hate to keep saying to go to your bar, but if you go to your bar, try to develop a relationship with a practicing attorney. Say, you're sitting around, you're having dinner or a drink or something, you say, hey, listen, you have this new case, can I just shadow your case? I mean, that's what even nurses, they're saying, oh, there's jobs all over. Well, my daughter just graduated an RN nursing school, and because she doesn't have any experience, she can't get any work either. So they're hiring them for like $10, $12 an hour. So it's not just being a lawyer. So you have to go out there. You have to say, hey, can I shadow your case? Can I, and by proving yourself and developing a relationship with existing lawyers, that's a way to do it. And another way that I was thinking, do you have a study group, people that you work with, you've worked through the 3 years in law school? If two or three of you haven't gotten a position, say, I'll research family law, you do the real estate closings, you do the litigation, and you all plot together and practice it so that then when you become knowledgeable, you can go and push a little bit harder and say, hey, listen, I'll do it for nothing. The bar also has pro bono volunteer. You could be guardian ad litem. Then you get before courts. They get to know you. You do a good job for that. Your name, your reputation is so important. And so, but once you get your name out there and you have a good reputation, things start to fall in place. And just because you're doing it solo, don't think this is harder than going into a big law firm. Each one has its challenges. And just know you can do it the same way you went through law school.
Well, I hate to shut it off, but I do want to thank our panelists. And if you have questions, go ahead and come down afterwards if you'd like to talk to anybody. So thanks for coming.